मेरी जेल की दिनचर्या एक काली रात में उस मुसाफिर की तरह है जो अनजाने में एक ऐसे जंगल में जा पहुंचा जिसका उसे जंगल का रास्ता तक नहीं मालूम कि वह जंगल से बाहर कैसे निकले। जब वह मुसाफिर घूमते फिरते थक कर सो जाता है तो वह सपने देखता है, माँ बाप, भाई बहन तथा दोस्तों से बातें करता है और मुसीबत के समय कुछ अजनबी उसकी मदद भी करते हैं। जब तक वह मुसाफिर सोता है उसको कुछ राहत मिलती है, पर जब जाग जाता है तो फिर से वह उस जंगल को देख डरने लगता है। ऐसा ही मेरा कुछ हाल है।
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a need to look at death row differently. Often there is a sense of othering that happens when we talk about prisoners on death row, because these are people who have been convicted of some of the most, to put it in a very crude way, very like gory crimes. And because of that, there is a sense of othering that we constantly do. We feel like, okay, that's not us. This is a horrible person who's committed a horrible crime, and so that's not me, and that's not how we are. So there is that constant othering that happens, and we often think of them as a certain that they may not have the same feelings like being happy, being sad, being upset, or being nervous. But when you read these letters, you feel like, oh my God, it seems like a letter that a friend would have written to me.
ഞാൻ പണിയെടുക്കുന്ന സ്ഥലത്ത് ചെടികളുടെ ഇടയിലും വാഴയുടെ കുലയിലും കയ്യെത്തുന്ന ദൂരത്ത് അനേകം പക്ഷികൾ കൂടുവയ്ക്കുകയും മുട്ട വിരിഞ്ഞ് കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളെ വിളിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. ജയിലിന് പുറത്ത് ഇത്രയും അധികം പക്ഷികൾ അടുത്തടുത്തായി കണ്ടെത്താൻ പ്രയാസമാണ്. മിണ്ടാപ്രാണികളാണെങ്കിലും ഞങ്ങൾ ഉപദ്രവിക്കില്ല എന്ന വിശ്വാസത്തിലാണ് എത്രയധികം കൂടുകൾ കെട്ടി മക്കളെ വിളിക്കുന്നത്.
We at Project 39A have been providing legal representation to prisoners who've been sentenced to death since 2014. The letter writing process was a result of that legal representation, where initially the idea was to write letters to the prisoners to inform them about the case, what the case updates might be, if any information that we required, if they had that information regarding the case. Or also, very crucially, to collect what we call in law mitigation evidence. So mitigation evidence is basically information about the life of the prisoners, and it is required by law so that it can help the court to decide the correct punishment or the more appropriate punishment. And so these letters became a way for us to engage with the prisoners as also a means to get to know about them and get to know about their lives. It really intensified during the pandemic, and while we were writing letters to them, what we also realized was that there is merit to engaging with them on its own terms rather than as just an instrumental way towards legal representation. There's a merit in engaging with the prisoners as humans.
మీరు పంపించిన చిలకమ్మ చదువు అనే కథ చాలా బాగుంది. నేను ఇక్కడ క్షేమంగానే ఉన్నాను, కానీ నాకు మానసిక ఆలోచనలు, ఏదో తెలియని భయం వేస్తుంది. ఎందుకనగా మా అమ్మ నాన్న వాళ్ళు ఎక్కడ ఉన్నారో, ఏం చేస్తున్నారో, ఎలా ఉన్నారో నాకు తెలియదు. ఎందుకనగా నా మీద కేసు పెట్టారు. ఆ కేసు గురించి నాకేమీ తెలియదు. నేను ఏమీ చేయలేదు. నేను ఒక సాధారణ లిఫ్ట్ మెకానిక్ని.
About 2 of the clients that we represent, female death row prisoners, are in their early 30s. Both of them speak about, what am I going to do after I get out? I don't even know if someone's going to marry me. I don't even know if I'm going to be young enough or able enough to have a child ever or be a mother. That's not something that comes out when you interview a male death row prisoner. Like, they almost never have I ever come across anyone who said, I don't know if anybody would be willing to marry me after I get out. Usually their worries are Am I going to get a job, be able to feed my family, feed my parents, take care of them? Never really about, would I ever be married? Would I ever be able to become like a father again?
मौत की सज़ा बहुत ही भयानक सज़ा है मैडम जी। आज का दिन गुज़र गया तो डर लग रहा था कि क्या कल का सूरज हमारे नसीब में होगा या नहीं। यही सोच सोच कर धीरे धीरे दिल और दिमाग निष्क्रिय होने लग जाता है। मैंने ये अनुभव किया है मैडम। 2016 और 2017 पूरे 2 साल हर दिन मैंने मौत का डर सहा है। शरीर सूख कर कांटा बन गया था, तनाव से, डर से।
The letters were also very important in prisoners being able to reflect and tell us how it is that they are doing in prison, what kind of needs they have, what are they missing, what they, we also ask them questions about what their hopes are, what their aspirations are, what do they think of their children, what do they miss about their family. So it became, of course, that part was there, and that part was reflective of a lot of distress that the prisoners were facing. So I guess these letters were a way of bringing their human face to us in a much more vivid manner. We have also used these letters as, particularly the artwork that prisoners have sent us and stories that they have sent us, as a way to show that these people have, or that particular individual or client, the hope of reformation and the dignity of reformation very much still exists for them. What, for instance, somebody's child means to them. We've put that across to courts, that we learned through letters.
A lot of our clients have actually never seen crayons or used crayons in their life. And now you see them, making art, using colors. Sometimes they also request us that, can you send a packet of colors to me? Can you send a packet of sketch pen to me?
Largely across India, they will have no work, they will have no access to education, and they will have very little to no access to the outside world. What that means is that these letters are the only way for them to interact with the world outside.
कोर्ट का फैसला होने में भी सालों लग जाते हैं, लेकिन मीडिया वाले तो कुछ ही दिनों में अपना फैसला पेपर में छाप देते हैं, और ये बात पूरी दुनिया भी मानती है। फिर आप किसी को कितनी भी सफाई दे दो, कुछ भी समझा लो, आपकी बात कोई नहीं सुनता है।
I wonder if hope has a way of, much like air and sunlight, of finding its way through the cracks, right? So even in the, heaviest despair and the blackest of despair, some amount of light comes in, because it is what sustains us in that sense, and it is also what creates the despair. More tangibly, the hope comes from wanting to be present for their families. The hope comes from wanting to do something for society. It comes from an insistence of innocence. It comes from seeing that there are people who are interested in your life.
A lot of people actually wrote back to us saying that this was the first time someone sent a letter to them, which made them really want to sort of respond to it. A lot of them had never been to school, so they actually started to learn to read and write just so that they could respond to our letters. And with each of these letters that we send, we also send them a book. I know that some of the associates in office have also sent them books that they have been reading at that point, just to see, these were my takeaways from the book, and what were yours. For the rest of the world, every day that they lose is closer to death, because you know that, okay, I've lived one day and now I'm one day closer to death. But for death row prisoners, you're not really sure if you're moving closer to death, or if you should be happy that, okay, I've gained one day, like I was not executed today, I've just gained one day in prison. We actually sent Gulliver's Travel to one of our clients, and he wrote a very interesting letter about how Gulliver's Travel gave him a lot of hope, because he felt like, just like his boat was lost in the sea and he finally landed on a Lilliput's island. He said that when my death sentence was confirmed by the High Court, I felt lost just as Gulliver did, and I just couldn't really see an end of it. There was just sea everywhere, and I didn't really know when would this end, or where do I go. But once my sentence was commuted by the Supreme Court, I felt the same relief that Gulliver felt when he touched the sand.
I think the hope is to provide different lenses of looking at evil criminals. It is a different way of engaging with not the death penalty as an abstract punishment, but as a very tangible experience for prisoners. I think it also is one of the hope, and one of the big hopes, I think, for me at least, is to remedy a little bit of uh, the injustice that is done to death row prisoners, particularly in terms of not believing their experiences. And it is the hope is through making their experiences and their emotions and life public through these letters, that injustice will be remedied a little.